It's the Champions Chess Tour Finals being played live over the board in Toronto, Canada, and look at this lineup. Superstars everywhere, but we all know who we've really come to see. Take a bow, 2509, Denis Lazovic. And I've got a lovely game to show you here today. A beautiful 21 move draw between Denis with white, Wesley with black. Just kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. Obviously, we're looking at Magnus Carlsen, and this is his Armageddon game against Nodirbek Abdusattorov, a guy, by the way, if you don't know, who won the World Rapid Championship 2 years ago, 2021, beat Magnus Carlsen on the way to doing that. This is a cracker. Magnus in a must-win position here. Nodirbek just has to draw to take the round. Now, there's a whole knockout thing going on in this tournament. I won't go into the details, but we've got a few days of this to come, and then we'll get a grand final and look at the money on the line. This is a serious tournament, right? So let's dive into this one. Magnus with white here kicks off with e4, and as you'll see after pawn e5, Magnus has got a big time advantage on the clock here because he's got that extra time. He bid for the extra and then he has to win. So we get bishop b5, the Roy Lopez. Now we follow the first 16 moves of their earlier game, which was played to a draw. Knight f6 now, castles, bishop e7, all common theory. Now rook e1 main move, but d3 also a big one, covering the pawn. Black can now go b5 straight away, but Nodirbek goes for this line. We get c3 from Magnus, castles, rook e1, now b5, drives back the bishop, and here you've got a choice. You can carry on manoeuvring, rook e8, that kind of thing, but Nodirbek goes pawn d5, immediately taking the fight to white in the centre. Magnus carries on developing. We get a change in pawn structure and bishop e6. So no h6 yet played. Why not knight g5? Well, then bishop g4 comes. So okay, Magnus just goes queen e2, carries on developing. Queen c8 now played. Weird looking move, but it clears the d-file for the rook to come into action. Magnus now goes h3, and here what to do as black. There's different plans. You know, you can bring the knight here, try and look to initiate an attack. But knight d7 selected, playing in the centre on the queen side, maybe one day wanting to go c5. You know, white's marginally better here due to that backwards pawn. And now Magnus goes knight f1, standard manoeuvre, bishop c4, gives the queen a little tickle, it drops back to d1, rook d8, eyeballs the lady, and now Magnus just ignores with knight to e3. Because after knight b6, this move, by the way, is the first deviation from the game they played earlier. So Nodirbek deviates. Interesting. Not in the Kramnik sense of interesting, by the way. And now we get bishop d2, blocking this attack on the queen. You know, it had no squares. And now this bishop retreats back to e6. There was a threat to capture it. b3 from Magnus. Good move. The pawn dominating this knight. Magnus has got ideas of expanding in future as well. And after x6, f6, supporting the centre, we get queen e2, bishop f8, tidy move. You know, in some lines you go knight e7, c5. Well, now Magnus, after rook e d1 and rook d7 from Nodirbek, changes the pawn structure. He's got to mix it up, right? So he goes pawn c4. Now there's pros and cons to this move. You clamp on the centre here, but you give the d4 square to black. Also the c5 square. So this is now the strategic battle. After this pawn exchange, bishop c5 immediately sits on the new weakened diagonal, and Magnus jumps in with the horse, wonderful central square, and you don't want to be capturing that one, connecting the pawns. So knight d4 now played. I mean, the computer wants to keep the status quo here. Bishop f8, sorry, queen f8, been a long day. King h8 or a5, but okay, the knight immediately hops, but it allows Magnus to take. Bishop recaptures, hits the rook, rook a b1, and there's no time for c6, kicking this one because then this knight on b6 is weak, and you don't want to take for reasons mentioned, connecting the pawns. So queen f8 played, bit of a waiting move, you know, improving to the dark square diagonal, but a4 now from Magnus. He plows the a pawn down the board, and this is dangerous for black. These pawns are weak, could be targeted in future. Magnus gaining huge space. So the rook comes to the d file here, but now Magnus should and doesn't go a5. He missed to do this immediately. Now the reason this is so strong is that if you drop back to c8, you know, if you take, there's problems with that as mentioned, well now you can get bishop a4 and the rook goes and then the knight drops back and you're hitting this pawn, and how to defend? You basically can't. White's doing great. But Magnus first goes for bishop b4. He's looking for an improved version of that variation. But after bishop c5, a5, it's not precise because Nodirbek had a shot here. What he should have played but didn't was bishop takes on b4. And now, if the knight recaptures, let me show you that actually, well, there's pressure on this pawn. So the knight can jump forward, doesn't have to go back to c8. And if you don't take this one here, if you take here, which is the best move for white, well then there's bishop takes here. You can flick in this one to first attack the rook. Rook recaptures, pawn takes, but now a5 comes. And when the smoke clears and you do a material count, it's 5 on 5 pawns, and this one is just cemented. You know, opposite colour bishops. Good luck winning this, right? So that could have been the way to go. But Nodirbek misses it. He takes on d5 here, but it's a terrible move. You can see the evaluation bar react. Because after pawn recaptures, he maybe thought he's winning a piece or something, or, well, not winning a piece, but doing well after this exchange. But if you take here and allow this one, it's just really good for white. You know, you can chop a pair of rooks off, but now what to do? This bishop's coming to b3 to support this thorn in the black side. The queen's on this pawn. This one's weak. Basically, white is a lot better here because black constantly has to watch this pawn. White starts mopping up things here and invading with the heavy pieces. Really good for Magnus. So, we didn't see bishop takes on b4. This bishop meekly retreats to f7, but now bishop takes, queen takes, and because the bishop on c2 is attacked, there's no time for queen takes here. So bishop a4, the rook goes, and now queen e1 holds on to a5, but still huge problems for black with that dodgy pawn structure. You know, a rook's coming to the c file. This is amazing. This is a bit dead. But Nodirbek, to his credit, goes f5. This is what a former world rapid champion will do. Mix it up. Go for complications and pressure, you know, in the center. So the rook comes to the c file, kicks that queen back. And now Magnus, fair play to him, best move. He just takes the pawn on f5, takes up the gauntlet, says take the d5 pawn, so what? I'm on your e pawn here, I'm on your c pawn, and we don't actually see this one immediately played. Again, it's tactics. So there's great moves here like bishop c6. And if you want to stay with the pawn, you know, defending e5, and you go rook c5, well then there's this move of rook d1. Very tactical. How much of this the players saw, I don't know. But because you're attacking here, after takes, queen recaptures, there's actually a huge attack on the black king. You know, no time to take here, or you check and the bishop blocks, and you check and you win this and everything. And if you don't take that bishop and you make some space, well now still the invasion comes. White's doing great here, huge advantage, you know, all sorts of problems here around this king. Whoops, that's the one I'm trying to draw. Anyway, coming back here. So the pawn, not immediately captured. We see queen d4 played instead. Hits the bishop on a4, protects e5. Rook b4 in response from Magnus. Excellent move. Look at this queen creating that kind of classic right triangle as Hikari loves to talk about. We get queen takes on d5. Rook takes on c7. And now Nodirbek, in some time pressure here, plays a suboptimal, no, a terrible move. He takes the pawn on a5, but it was a very difficult position anyway. Now, why is this so bad? Can you see the tactical shot for white here? And bear in mind, your rook is attacked on c7. Obviously, these pieces are being pressured, etc. But there's a great move, a winning shot. So the move to play, which Magnus found, is rook takes on f7. And here's the point. If king recaptures, you now check from b7, and that is a discovery. Your queen is about to drop off the board. Whether you move or block or whatever, your queen's dropping. So we didn't see the king take. Instead, queen takes on a4 played. Excellent shot for some counterplay, because by removing the defender of d1, now Nodirbek's got these ideas to win back the white queen. So Magnus is about to lose this rook, so he flicks in this one, takes with check, and it's a really cool move, because if the king captures, now you take here with check, then you pick up the queen on the next move. Of course, this is lost, queen for rook up. So that one wasn't taken, king f8 played, we get rook takes on a4, Nodirbek does win back the queen, but after takes, rook takes, king h2, this one dropping off the board, Magnus snaps up this pawn and he's 2 pawns ahead. e4 was tried, g4, h5, rook e6, rook e1, king g3, and in this position, Nodirbek resigned the game. Why did he do so? Well, it wasn't premature. You know, say you take, for example, well, these pawns are just running. This is one sample line. What to do? You can even win the f pawn. Doesn't matter. These connected passes are too much. They go through. That is the end of the game. So Magnus takes down Nodirbek. He also beat Lazovic. Really interesting standings. Here they are on screen after day 1. I hope you enjoyed. Do subscribe to never miss a future video and see another epic game of chess. Check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.